haven't stopped to question and really look at it instead of looking at it and seeing it as a exclamation of being pathetic with yourself in an empathetic way, but it's hollow, kind of, right? It's more like a redundancy. Like, you know what I mean? And so, in that sense, that first step of being truth and honest to how you feel, a sense of sorrow, loss, sadness, devastation, and grief, feel it to the heart and the core in truth. Don't neglect yourself. Don't reprimand yourself. Say it in truth, not hate. Say it in truth, not rage. Say it in truth, not what's that called? Disgust of it's something happened. And in that sense, what you will be able to do is start beginning to put together the reasons why something like this happened, and that is the mystery of it. That's you now having to pretty much psych yourself out in order for you to give it a reason. And when you start with a reason, you will have a reason to go on. You'll have a reason to heal faster. You'll have a reason to put yourself together faster. And if you can do that now with everything comfortable outside yourself, when something like this happens, you'll be a strength, a beacon, a leader, someone who is in truth, honesty, up to the empathy of what everything is happening, but at the same time, you will have the correct words of how you can communicate it to somebody who doesn't want to listen to anything because it's too raw, right? And so that was the other one about that. The virtuous side, it's too soon to tell someone, well, you had an attachment to a worldly possession, and you should know that you have to leave everything behind. It's too much. And then the other one was, this is a punishment for you. God is punishing you. All that stuff. No, He's not. God, what you see and what these people who are like punishment, karma, it's not such as that. With God, this is not a judgment. This is a delay. It's not a denial. It is, He knows the perfect step to do, no matter if you cannot understand it outside of yourself, that will keep you in a perseverance of humility. I know it's hard to even understand why that has to happen. That's why it's not wise to ask questions like why can't today be like the good old days. It's a question that is not wise. Like you can't change anything. All you have to do is try to understand it and know that you have an opportunity to grow as a person. I know it's hard at the moment, but that's what people have been saying, and it's kind of shameful on them. I feel for them to condemn people who are already completely down and kick them while they're down. And it's easy to say all those three things, easy to say when it's not happening to you, no matter how much you can imagine it happening to you. Until it happens to you, you don't know, And so it's like none of those things can happen because you're not putting yourself in that first step of being truth and honest to something that is completely your new reality. In the blink of an eye, everything went on its head. It is a feeling that is devastating, and I've had many times that I had to start over in my life, so I have a great experience about letting go and moving on, and the more that I had to do that, the quicker I saw myself adjusting to my future, adjusting accordingly. The first time it happened, it took a longer time. Second time it happened, it took a shorter time. Third time it happened, it took a way shorter time. This time it happened, it was like only like one day. I was just like, but it was not even, I didn't have a sense of loss. I did feel myself because it is like sorrowful, and I'm going to be true to my feelings as much as I can, get it out. But at the same time, I was able to put my mindset in that sense that, okay, this is not punishment for me. What can I learn and how can I help? If you want to be great in the kingdom, learn to be a servant of all, now is the time that I will be able to help people who I've never even talked to, my neighbors. Disasters bring people out closer together. There's no details that are keeping us apart, and the only thing we can relate on is that we are here now in a disaster that affected us both, right? And in that sense, you can then start building agape-ship, brotherly type of love, and friends, and you can fortify communion again. And in that sense, that's how you get from 1 to 2 to 5, and then if there's 5 people, who knows how many people. 5 plus 5 could equal 3,000, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, if you can practice this type of getting to know and in touch with your emotions right now, while the disaster is not here, when that time comes, because the way that everything is happening, there's a pattern slowly develop. Us being on the coast here in Houston, the Gulf Coast is right there. I know it's going to be some pretty devastating things, and we've already known how to go through that, And so, in that sense, you will be fortified in the true wealth of who you are and what you have truly learned in where you are at the moment, in your comfort, and you feel pleased with yourself. You'll learn the true strength of that by reflecting, how you got to this pleasantness of your life. And that is the second part, which is reflecting, right? And so there's a consistency that comes with this type of exercise, but all it is looking at where you are now and facing the darkened soul mirror of who you are in truth, not disgust, but truth, not hate, but truth, not putting yourself down like, oh, I look ugly, or not. It's truth, which is how, when you look at something, look at it for what it is. Don't let your emotional context hit it, and then think about, is it something that you can fix and strengthen, or something that you have to just accept, or something that you can totally let go of, right? And in that sense, those three types of choices, looking at the in truth of who you are, your criticism will help you to develop a sense of positive observation for yourself and acceptance of yourself, right? And in that sense, what it does is help you to not go into denial of when a disaster happens outside of yourself. That is going to be very devastating. You can face it as a disaster and look at it as, is this something that I can fix? Is it something that I can let go of? Or is it something that I can work on to do better, or just accept as it is, kind of thing, right? And in that sense, you'll have more control of the situation instead of the situation having control of your emotions and looking at everything in chaos. You'll start to be able to organize the chaos that is in front of you, and pretty much align yourself in your attitude and beatitude to the universe, which is of chaos, but it's completely organized, and you'll be in league with it, kind of, even in a disaster. So that reflecting part, and being critical, but not being criticismed like of yourself, right? Negatively. It's just looking at yourself in truth, and that's what it is, or it isn't. And do you have the power to fix it, right? While in comfort right now. And being consistent is probably the main factor and key of doing that. And so I would suggest doing it for like a week, and being consistent. And it doesn't have to be long. It's writing. You just write. You can do it on your phone. You can do it voice to text. But I like writing because it makes me slow down in my texting, and then I really have to focus on the words that I'm thinking in order to really put in truth where I am right now, right? And so do that in truth and reflecting. Do it for like a week about how you feel. If you're happy, if you're sad, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, and then you go from there. If you're happy, what makes you happy, and if it's something outside of yourself, like a material possession like shoes, think about when you didn't have those shoes, the reasons that made you want those shoes. How do you remember how when you got them, how you felt? but remember the journey of trying to get those shoes, right? Because if a disaster comes, like a flood, and those shoes are gone, the only thing left is remembering the journey of how you got those shoes. And if you're not in touch with the strengthening aspects of that journey, that fortified who you were, and focus all of your reward on top of something outside of yourself that was beautiful and made you feel accomplished, but now it's gone, where did that feeling go? So you have to get back in touch with that, because if the shoes are gone, if you can get back in touch with that, you can get something better than shoes, right? It's kind of like that, right? So it's like really focusing and realizing in a virtualizing sense of who you are to strengthen your aspect of attitude. And in that sense, you'll be a lot stronger in a disaster that is going to be devastating. You won't be so devastated. You'll be redeveloped, right? You'll be able to reform yourself faster, and then therefore help everybody else, and then become a beacon of light, a role model, a source of strength for those who are down. And you'll be the opposite, which is going to help to balance out quicker all around you. Your cup will overflow, right? But this takes practice. Living in comfortability, you have attachments, and comfortability is one of those really subtle enemies, right? You take things for granted without even realizing it. So there's no thanks, but there's no devastation if it's gone. But if it's because you have taken for granted that it's going to be there the next day or whenever you pretty much want it. And from the smallest thing, like running water from the faucet, to hot water running from the faucet, to toilet paper on the toilet, to a toilet that flushes so it doesn't stink up, to eating with a fork, even to things like that, and then of course electronics and that communication thing. If there's EMP type of things because of asteroid magnetism coming in, when it comes in, it totally changes atmospheric pressures and brings with it types of radiations, microwaves and sonic waves, that we don't know how it's going to affect electronics. And there's also EMPs, electromagnetic pulses, that if it devastates a grid, the darkening ages, we're living in the Stone Age almost. And you think, what I like to think is like, yeah, we're capable of doing that, we're strong enough. But when I used to say that, my mind never was in that place where it's like a blink of an eye. It's not like, oh, we gradually go there. It's one day you had it and the next day never ever again. What? What are you going to do without air conditioner in the summertime? Like, we take things for granted, but that's the comfortability, right? So it's getting in touch with that. And so it's almost like living and reflecting on yourself in your truth about how the comforts of your life have affected you, and getting back in touch with your treasures in the true wealth of who you are and the strength and fortitude that you have learned, and develop those right now, to prepare yourself better for something that could possibly happen. And it's better to be prepared for something that doesn't happen than for that thing to happen and not be prepared. And we don't think like that in the sense of the emotional thing. We think that being prepared is, we bought water, we bought food, extra batteries, stuff like that, things that are outside of yourself. But in the end, those things are not as valuable than the true store of heaven that is in you, your attitudes about that's going to help you to live and survive in it. So that's where I like to think about storing up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, where floods, hurricanes, hail, lightning, all those stuff does not destroy, and people cannot break in and steal, because your heart, that's your heart of you. Where your heart is, there your treasure will be also, right? And your desire is in your heart. And your heart, your treasure, your desire, that is found in the cave of your true soul nature, in truth, that you have been afraid to enter. When's the last time you got in touch with your emotions? And in America, what you find is there's a lot of broken families, and so they didn't have correct role models. And growing up like that, we weren't taught to emote correctly.